the darkest nights, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Surviving together, victorious, and never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey guys, how you doing tonight? You've landed at Surviving Together. If you did not know, little harried, can you tell? I'm like, oh. So we have got a great show tonight. We are going to be talking about how to support a survivor, what to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do. I know that this is a topic that is near and dear to a lot of your hearts, especially if you are a survivor and you've been through this before and you've had people say things that maybe weren't quite the right thing, or they didn't understand how to support you, even though you were trying to talk about it. So we're going to go through all of that tonight. But first off, let's see who we have here. We have Cromel joining us. Thank you so much. And Crystal Phoenix Rising and Crystal M. Welcome, both of you. Thank you. And Janet is here tonight. Oh my gosh, all of my mods. What? I know Misha's been, I spoke with her earlier, and so she might be hanging around, but I don't expect to see her much in the chat tonight. Shannon, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. How is your evening doing? Yes, Crystal, any word on the move? Do we have a date yet? We're all excited. Every live, we're going to ask you, any news, any news, any news? Let's see. Teresa, welcome. So glad you're here. Let's see. Sorry about the little mess-up yesterday. For some reason, I had the live scheduled on Tuesday, and I had no idea. And a couple of my moms called me, and I'm like, no, it's not tonight. I'm at dinner currently, so yeah, we're definitely not having it tonight. Nope, Wednesdays as always. Wednesdays. And I had to reset my intro again. I have no idea. It disappeared. I had to actually load it, which is why I was a few minutes late, and I had to process. And whew, I have no idea why it just like disappeared. Maureen, how are you doing tonight? I'm glad you are here. Let's see. I'm just getting through. There is Misha. I said you were probably going to be in the background today, and there you go, showing me up, showing me wrong. But Misha and I had a really good conversation. We've been meaning to connect for so long. Okay, that brings us up to the people. And I'm so glad that she remembered about the outro. We've got some changes to the intro that we want to make that I've talked about before. You know, nothing major, and little changes to the channel site itself. So when you go on the channel, you'll be able to see our live times, you know, Wednesdays and Saturdays normal. But the biggest thing is the outro, and we're really excited about that. I'm glad she remembered what we were doing. I think it's a wonderful idea. I think you guys are going to really appreciate it as an outro. We've only got it set for a minute, so if anybody thinks that it should be longer, let me know in the comments. But to give you guys a chance to say goodbye to each other and whatnot, you know, as a nice outro with some good information and some good music. Martha Fowler, how are you doing tonight? Welcome, welcome. Firefly Dreams, I'm so glad to see you. I know I saw you in somebody else's lives. I don't remember quite whose, but welcome here. I think we're going to probably get some more people trickling in. So I will actually briefly mention as we get some more of our people in. I do have my notes on the computer today, which I don't like doing it that way. I really prefer to have them handwritten. It gets things in my brain a little bit better that way. So I apologize. I'm going to be going back and forth. Izzy's, that's probably where I saw you. Great. Yes. Thank you. Izzy Ska, she does some wonderful graphic design work over there. So yeah, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. We are 10 away from 350. Woo! Woo! I had a goal of 500 by the time I consider my official 1-year anniversary. I don't know if that'll happen. It's a little bit of an ambitious goal considering that will be February 4th, February 5th, something like that. And, you never know. But I think we're going to be close. We'll be close within a few months, if not, if good. It's just kind of the goal. 9 away from 350. Say what? I gotta stix myself up here, guys. It's my way of saying I need lip balm. It is so cold out. I go out for just a few minutes and it's just like bam, my lips are chapped. I know it's got to be even worse for my Canadian fellows, Crystal, and Janet, you guys up there. Wee-hoo, even colder. William from Brooklyn, welcome. Jajagor, that's okay. Just sit back, listen. Primo, glad to see you. Thank you guys for stopping by tonight. So I'm going to briefly mention it's not Crystal Phoenix and I brought this up to her the other day, and we haven't talked to kind of figure out all the details, but the basic concept's going to be the same. And I'll get some more specifics here within the next week, probably definitely by next week's live. But about 6 months ago or so, I talked about the Clothesline Project. And for those of you who may not know what this is, it is a project that was started kind of a community event, and survivors of various different types of abuse made T-shirts with whatever saying, whatever comment they wanted to put on it. And it could be survivors, it could be friends of survivors, it could be just supporters of the survivor community, anything. Anyone can make one of these T-shirts. And they have different colors for different types of abuse surviving, if you wanted to follow that. And so we've got some decisions to make that way. But we want to do a virtual clothesline. So I'm going to be giving a call out to you guys to make your own T-shirts. Doesn't have to be something expensive. You could take an old T-shirt, turn it inside out, and put your statement on there, and send in a picture or a short video if you want to make some comments, and we'll put it together. My goal is to have everyone's submissions in by like say April 1st, because April 19th is National Hanging Out Day, which means hanging your clothes out on the clothesline day. And it's a Saturday, so I'd be presenting it in a Saturday Live, and I'm thinking of doing at least one, maybe two separate lives, probably like on a Sunday or a Friday night or something like that, to where you guys can all come and we'll do T-shirts together. You bring your T-shirt, I'll bring mine, you guys bring your supplies, and we can make our T-shirts together. So when Crystal and I have a chance to get together and talk about the details and finalize things, is kind of how we want it. I will share a screen again with examples of the Clothesline Project and the things that they've done. If you want to look, you can just look up, just Google the Clothesline Project, and it'll pop up, and you'll get to see some of the things that people have done in different communities all around the United States. And I'm not sure how far in the world that it's spread. But I think this will be a fun thing. If you guys didn't know, April is, in the United States, it is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. It is also Stress Awareness Month, Child Abuse Awareness Month, so many different months. And then June is where the international kind of falls. So I couldn't find a good date that had international, plus. So you guys internationally, you're just going to have to suffer that we're doing it on a national holiday, quote unquote. Hey, Thindu, thank you so much for being here. And ALV, glad you stopped by. William, thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing your channel with them. Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, hopefully it gives them a place to go. And I do have resources linked in my description, so that people have, the National Victims Awareness. It's really long. There's RAINN, RAINN. There's a couple organizations for men in there as well. So beyond just this channel, there's places that they can go, and there's some phone numbers there too. 24/7 availability for survivors. It's not suicide hotlines. These are for survivors who just need somebody to talk to. And so they can get those resources there as well. Yes, check this out as well. Misha's announcing the village is trying to help a second grade class. Crystal Phoenix shared this with me. That a second grade, they're trying to get either postcards or Valentines from around the world. And they are going to put a sticker or a pin on each place, each state that they get one from, each country that they get something from. So if you go to that website, you'll see the address for the second grade class right there. And all you have to do is mail something in. That's it. Whether it's a postcard or, buy a Valentine at the dollar store, something like that. Doesn't have to be expensive. Your stamp might cost more than the actual stationery itself. Why not go global? I mean, we got the reach. Let's do it. Absolutely. I think that'll just be awesome. So thanks for throwing up channels, guys. If anybody doesn't see their channel up and they want it up, just let one of the mods know and they can throw it up for them. I appreciate it because we are all about supporting everybody. ALV, if you guys don't know, because he's generally not in the chat, but his channel, I'll put his up here. It showed up, the Wine Guild. He does ghost stories, usually every Friday night, and from different places, different time periods. Really interesting. And then he'll touch on kind of some paranormal stuff. Do you think it's paranormal? Do you not think it's paranormal? So if you want something that's just totally different than what we do, go and check what he does. And if you're wondering why it says the Wine Guild instead of ghost stories, because he started doing wine originally when he was on here. So what, does William have a new one? Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Awesome. That is perfect. So yeah, go on and check it out. And they're just as interesting on replay, because generally I tend to catch his show on replay. If I do catch out the live, I make it about 20 minutes, and listening to your voice, ALV, it's my ASMR. I just go, I fall asleep just because you're very melodic, and it's just, it's a nice story, and you get about, 10 minutes or so out of it. But I love listening to the replay. I once was told it's the greatest compliment if somebody can fall asleep to your voice and never be offended by it. Who was the guy? Oh, okay, William, you're great. Fabulous. Yanni, that was the guy. He said that greatest compliment, people fall asleep to his music. He just kind of, musical, melodical, new age stuff was coming out in the 90s, I think, ish. Um, Man, I haven't listened to him in a long time. I should check that out. All right, guys, let me pull up my chat here. And I'm going to have to pull this out of here because I can't stand not being able to look at the chat and talk to you guys at the same time. So, hey, Echo, how's it going? So glad that you're here. Hey, everyone, if you didn't know, living my best life at 60 is now 62. As of today, she has a birthday. So, if you guys want to wish Echo a happy birthday. 62 young ones, right? It's awesome. All right, let me get situated here again. So, let's talk about how to support a survivor. And I think we should probably start what if a survivor comes to you? Someone comes to you, child, adult, doesn't matter, male, female, doesn't matter. And they say, I've been abused, or there's an abuse situation going on. What do you say? How do you react to that person? I'm sorry that happened to you. Do you want to talk about it? But really, most importantly, I believe you. What can I do? What can I do to help? One of the biggest things that you can do for that person is to show them that you believe them. I say at the end of that intro, we hear you, we believe you. It's so important that survivors feel heard and that they feel believed. Some people who aren't part of this community, the survivor being a survivor, they're like, well, but they could be lying. It's possible, but the amount of false claims compared to the people who have genuine abuse going on is so minuscule. And I say, if you're skeptical, trust, but verify. If it's a child coming to you, it's important that you believe that child, because it's possible that they have told somebody else in their life and they haven't been believed. The strength it takes to disclose to somebody is immense. Most people in their lifetime who suffer some form of abuse are never going to disclose. And I've said this before, on average, for people who are my age, people 40, 50, 60, 20 to 30 years is the average of disclosure. The disclosure rates have been going up, and I do think it is really due to the fact that we've had so many public situations with organizations where there's been claims of abuse against them. So it has become more acceptable. People have understood, yes, this does happen in organized, in organizations, the Boy Scouts, Little League, your sporting events. It happens in religious institutions. I mean, it would be unheard of to say something against the clergy. The clergy you couldn't fathom that, because to believe that it undermines people's faith. It can at least undermine people's faith. And people don't want to do that. But now it's more accepted that it happens. And so disclosure rates have definitely gone up, I do believe, because of that. Hi, Kathy Martis. How are you doing? I'm glad you joined us tonight. Hi, Jimena. How are you doing? You know, I have a feeling this might end up being a two-part show. We might end up continuing this on Saturday. I'm just reading some of the comments, and I do want this to be interactive because it's so important of a subject. And I'm listening to you guys, and I'm looking at them, and Misha says here, no judgment, just compassion. No fixing necessary, just be there. Absolutely, 100%. I am going to throw my trigger warning up, guys, just because people are going to be sharing, I'm sure, bits of their story, or how they feel. And it is really important that if you're starting to feel triggered, that you step away. If you feel your anxiety level starting to raise, please step away, take care of yourself first. This is a safe space. There's never a judgment for whatever you have to reveal here. And Crystal M says, it doesn't matter if they're lying, just be there for them. There's probably a reason. Most people aren't going to lie about something like abuse, physical, sexual, emotional abuse, for no apparent reason, like just for attention. It just doesn't work that way in general. And it's a disservice, I believe, that it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So the things that we hear about on the news generally are going to be those false allegations against movie stars or sports figures, or the Duke lacrosse team comes to mind. The woman has testified under oath that she lied and she made it up. And there were various reasons for it. She had a troubled past. And it was because of that troubled past that led her to do what she did, from the information that I'm able to gather. So it's usually that they still need somebody, and they still need an ear. But I think you'll find 9 times out of 10, 9.8 times out of 10, that what the person has gone through is very, very real. And if by listening to somebody, you're able to actually help them out of a situation, to save a child who is being abused, isn't that worth it? Even just to be there for them, even if there's nothing you can do about that situation, to feel heard, to feel believed, to know that there is somebody that you can come to, is just so important. Even if all you can do is facilitate help, finding resources for that person to be able to speak to somebody better qualified than you. You may feel like this is just something way beyond my pay grade, but I can help you get to the people who can truly help you. And that's invaluable. Shannon says, I never reported to authorities, but I told my best friend right away. I never reported to anyone until I revealed to my family, and I was not really believed. And I didn't tell anybody for, I think it was about a decade, about 10 years later, when I spoke to a counselor and was believed. But I never ended up reporting to authorities either. By the time I got to that point, the statute of limitations had passed. So for me, it was kind of, on that. And William, I can imagine, the courage for you being able to talk about abuse that happens in our families at the hand of either parent. It's like twice as hard because society's made it that way. But you're just a kid. Kids are kids. And abuse, putting cigarettes out on a kid is never okay. And so I applaud you, and I'm very proud of you for bringing that up and being able to try and heal from that trauma, because it's so difficult. The restrictions that culturally, just in society in general, that are put on men, not to talk about these things or to think that they don't happen to men, because they do, as kids and adults. And Crystal says it took her mom's death to be able to open up about what her mom did, because even as an adult, you don't live with that person anymore. And it's been 30 years since you lived with that person. Maybe you don't even have contact with that person anymore. But the internal fear, it can be paralyzing. Just afraid of what might become. And so a lot of times that is very common, that it could be the death of somebody who allows us finally to feel safe enough to bring that information forth. Firefly, I think this is extremely important. I want to speak to your comment. It says, my mind couldn't handle the trauma and compartmentalized it. I know it happened, but the memories aren't there, if that makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And here's why. You may not be able to bring forth those memories, but it's there. And that's why you know that it happened. I speak about the first time trauma happened to me, and I don't remember all of it. And I don't have a clear memory of something happening, but I know from my heart and soul, I just know that it did. And that is because when trauma is so overwhelming, your brain actually protects you. And it's not going to recall, it's not going to record those, it's not going to record the trauma as a visual. It's going to record it as on that survival level. So that's why you feel it. But try as you might, you can't bring forth an actual memory. And even if you do, you might get a bit over here and a bit over here, and nothing's in order. And that's perfectly normal. That's what our body does when it's overwhelmed by trauma. Putting visual memories together and being able to recall them in a nice, timely fashion, and all of the details that happened with it, that's our prefrontal cortex talking. All right, that's its job, and that's what it does when everything's hunky-dory. But when we have total shit going down, it's just not going to do that. And here's another piece with the compartmentalization and being able to recall memories. I had heard this once, and then when I started doing some more research on it, discovering the studies behind it, our brains will not allow us to recall a memory until it feels safe enough for us to do so. Until our amygdala, that survival part of our brain, is convinced that survival's not going to be an issue anymore, if we recall this, whether it's survival on an emotional level, like it's not just, so overwhelming, or survival from a physical standpoint, it's not going to allow you to remember it. This is why sometimes later in life, certain events can happen, like the death of somebody, or say you're in a relationship later on in life and you are 100% comfortable and you feel safe and secure, and all of a sudden the freaking bottom of your world drops out and these memories come flooding in, and you're like, where in the hell did this come from? I've been doing hunky dory, thank you very much. Gosh, I'm pulling that one out of my butt from the 70s. Everything's been good. Why now in my life I've got to deal with this crap? I could have just gone just along without remembering this. Thank you very much. Things were good. Well, it's because things were good that your body says, okay, you can deal with this now. And it definitely then can be overwhelming. And it may not give it to you all at once. It may just give you a piece or two, and you're like, what in the world? Where is this coming from? That's why. Hey, Body Illusion, how are you? I'm so far back in the chat. I am apologizing. Let me just love to all of you. Thank you for the support for all of you guys. Hey, Rich, how are you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Misha, hugs, 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 hugs. That's all I can say. Hugs, hugs, hugs. Definitely, when we think back upon these things and we realize how much that they have, how much they are affecting us, it definitely can bring to light, you go, oh, that's why I don't like somebody who does X, Y, or Z. I had no idea. It's a subconscious trigger. And when we're dealing with a survivor, particularly in that early stage, by just being there, by offering yourself up, but never asking for really specific details, is really important. With kids in particular, because we do want them safe, and we may have to go to the parents, or we may have to go straight to authorities. And if you yourself are given this information and you don't know what to do with it, you're not sure how to help this person, please go into the resources. It's in every video description that I've got. And there are 1-800 numbers that you can call and talk to them. They will help you through with who you should talk to, who you should further disclose to, if you're not a mandatory reporter. If you are, you know what you need to do. Mayonnaise Entertainment, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I know it's been a while since you've been in a chat. It says the older they get, the more memories I remember. You're feeling safer. That's all it is. And I am a firm believer that having someone to talk to about whatever your memories are, and again, I've said whether it's talking in terms of a journal, writing things down is great. However, saying things out loud for a victim, okay, makes it real and makes it to where we're actually dealing with that thing and can bring you into then the survivor realm. So even if that's talking out loud to the wall, talking out loud to a camera like I am now, or if it's talking to somebody else, talking anonymously on a phone call to one of these 1-800 numbers, anything. Oh, Rich, I'm so sorry. This can be, Rich says he's lost 3 friends in 1 year, and you don't know what to make of it. And I'm not sure if when you say you've lost friends, if these are friends who have unintentionally unalived themselves, accidentally overdosed, intentional unalivings, or just, accidents and dying from other health things. Regardless of the reason why, that can be hugely traumatic. The emotional impact that takes from losing so many people. You've probably got a lot of different feelings all going through you. And I can't speak more to that without knowing the more specifics of that situation, but just know, we're here for you. We get it. And I don't have the stats off the top of my head right now, but the amount of people who suffer from abuse of one form or another, and severe emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, who end up unaliving themselves at some portion during their life, some part of their life. And it can be years later. Sometimes people, when these memories come back and they haven't been dealing with it, they've been coping with it through negative coping skills, things, bad habits, addictions to whatever, drugs, food, alcohol, gambling, porn, doesn't matter. You develop these negative coping skills because that trauma is there. Once your trauma goes in your body, until you get it out, it's there. Whether we remember it or not, your body remembers it. And science now has proven that we have memory at our cellular level, more than just neural cells that are in our heads. The latest study I looked at, they did a study between kidney cells and brain cells, and proved that yes, kidney cells do remember things. So this trauma, it affects us. It affects our entire body. And it's there. It affects how we relate to people, even though we don't realize it. So being there for somebody, knowing that they can talk to you without judgment, without trying to fill in the blanks for them, and just allowing them to have an open space can be the greatest gift that you can do for somebody who comes to you, whether it's as an initial disclosure or whether it's somebody who you knew something had happened to, and now they're really kind of going through the process of dealing with these memories, or they're at a point in time where they want to talk about it. Just be a safe space. Sometimes our curiosity gets the best of us, and it can be born from a well-meaning place in our hearts where we're trying to get more information so that we can help them more in some way, but it's just overwhelming for the person who's giving the information. If you find yourself in that situation, just back off. Just again, let them know that you are there. Open-ended questions versus closed-ended questions. And allow them to just have the space. Hi, Mark. How are you doing? I'm so glad you're here with us today. To all of my people who are overseas, thank you, thank you, thank you, because I know it's pretty late. And mayonnaise is staying sober. Congrats. You know, sometimes we don't realize why we have no negative coping skills. We don't realize that we're coping from anything because we don't have the traumatic memories. And then they come forth and you're like, oh, that's why I was doing that. Oh, great, wonderful. Belief for me, right? It has such a dramatic impact on our psyche, trauma, even if we don't remember it, on our psyche and on our physical health. I'm going to be doing a series on trauma and our physical health, our mental health, ADHD, kind of getting into this. I did it in bits and pieces, and it was kind of my initial research, and I've done some even more, and I want to get into it again. Excuse me, I got to get some water, guys. Okay, let's bring this back on. Crystal M says, even through the stress, even through all the stress of these past few months, my body is finally putting pieces together that I've always known. They were all there. They're all part of the same memory, but there were still bits and pieces that were missing. Yeah. And it happens that way. It's not remembering trauma, being able to piece together trauma is not logical like we want to think it's logical. And this is where not understanding this in years past did survivors a great disservice. Just because somebody cannot remember an event doesn't mean it didn't happen. If they tell you, I know it happened, I'm trying to remember the details and I can't. And for somebody who's never been through severe trauma, they might go, you went through something really traumatic and you can't remember? Okay, that would be the one thing I would think you would remember. And so they tended to disbelieve. When in actuality, the more severe the trauma, the less likely you're going to have clear memories. It's your body's way of protecting yourself. Your brain is going to fragment that. Your brain is going to put on hold its ability to put time and space together. It's not necessary. When your body's under extreme stress, it is worrying about survival. It is decreasing your immune system. It is decreasing your appetite. Eating doesn't become as important. You're just trying to make it to the next day. So the cortisol levels in your body are going to spike. That's your stress. That's the stress hormone. And it has your heart rate increases. It has such a severe impact on us. Mayonnaise, we're glad you're still here. Struggling with agoraphobia, it's, I can completely understand that. I'm looking at the chat now and I'm seeing several of you. I do as well. Not as much as I did when I was, when we were coming off of COVID, because I really had isolated and I didn't go anywhere really pretty much for any reason. I had people who loved running errands and they'd run any errand. It's like, hey, we're out. Do you need anything? And somebody would drop off this and somebody would drop off that. And I didn't have a reason. I didn't have to go out. And the more I didn't go out, the worse it got. I had to take my car in because it had to go and nobody else could go. And they had to do the repairs there because of COVID. They weren't sending people out to do these repairs that they normally would. I was on the phone with Janet, I think, the entire time I was there, just to have somebody to talk to, because my heart was racing right out. I just felt so exposed. And I always want people to know that I heard this, and I said it a couple lives ago, but mental illness trauma is a mental injury. Okay? Trauma, let me say that again. Trauma is a mental injury. Just because you suffer through trauma does not equal mental illness. You can have symptoms of anxiety and panic attacks and depression without those being classified as a mental illness. It depends on the severity and the length as to when they're going to classify you clinically as those types of symptoms then becoming a mental illness. So I think that there is a misconception in the larger population of people who say, I'm a survivor, they must suffer from some mental illness. Well, it's a good guess, and you're probably not wrong. It isn't unnecessary. It's not a one-on-one correlation. So people who are maybe hesitant to describe what they have gone through in the past as trauma, because they're like, I don't suffer any mental illness. I'm not depressed. I don't have anxiety, or yeah, some things happen, but it's okay. It's okay. It's just the way it was. If you've never dealt with it, the trauma is still in you, and you're probably dealing with it in ways you don't realize. That trauma, it doesn't go away, people. Those negative coping skills you may have developed along the way, guess what? Probably because of the trauma you suffered. You just didn't put it in those words. You just didn't use that language. But there's a reason that we will turn to negative coping skills. There's a reason that we continue them, even though we know that they're bad for us. So if you think you've never suffered trauma in your life, guess again. Because most of us will at some point. Now, some of us may be able to deal with it fairly well. And it all depends on a lot of factors. We've talked about this before. Your age, your support system, your belief system and culture system growing up, what you thought was normal. All of this is going to go into how well you're able to process a trauma that you suffered. And that's why you can have two people in the same car, went through the same exact accident. One pops out a couple of months later and is doing just fine. And the other is like, I'm never leaving my room again. Why? Because they have both had different past experiences. They both have different support systems, more than likely. They could be of different ages, developmental stages that way. Thindu, I'm honored. I'm honored that you felt comfortable enough to talk about your stuff here. And you've always got open space to come on. You can email me. You can call me if you need to talk to somebody. This SaaS community here is so supportive of one another. And I am so proud that we're building this to give people who have never thought about looking at their past in terms of trauma, it being trauma versus, yeah, my childhood wasn't that great. You know, the adverse childhood experiences that we go through in life have a significant impact on our mental and physical health later on in life, whether you realize it as trauma or not. The studies that they have done and the connections that they have made, these ACE studies are continuing, they call them ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, are continuing to go on and in different populations. And the, being 4 times more likely to unalive yourself. Actually, I think it was 4 times more likely to have some form of heart disease, nearly 12 times more likely to unalive yourself. Depending on your amount of adverse factors, there's 10 that they classify, depending on how many you have. But if you have 6 or more, shave 10 years off your life expectancy, just like that. And this is all without dealing with our traumas, okay? And then again, it's, X amount of times more likely to. Doesn't mean you're going to, but it puts you in a higher risk category. And so if you don't deal with it, yeah, you're just going to say goodbye a little bit earlier. We'll do another show on the ACEs, probably. Maybe we'll do it after we go through some of the trauma, some of the new information, some of the new studies that have been coming out, saying that ADHD is not hereditary. Alcoholism, it's not hereditary. You go, wait a minute, they found a gene. Well, the gene predisposes you to alcoholism. And that probably is one they'll find just for addiction, predisposes you to addiction. Doesn't mean you're going to get it. So why do some people who have the gene fall into alcoholism, and why do some people not? It has to do with our experiences. It has to do with our environment. So it's this nature versus nurture. One is informing the other, and vice versa. And then your body's informing you on how that's affecting you going through your life. And our brain is very plastic. We talk about neuroplasticity. We can rewire our brains. They can be underdeveloped, but then you can develop those areas. They can be wired one way, but then you can rewire them. Easy? Not a chance. But it can be done. See you, Misha. Take care. Trauma is stress. Stress is an aggravator for health issues, 100%. And trauma can cause health issues. This is where some people have trouble following the connected dots. And that's why I want to do some more lives on it in terms of how suffering trauma, and I'm not talking about physical trauma and therefore you've got a bruise, but how intaking it then can affect your health and can cause different health issues. This link between trauma and autoimmune diseases, very real. So and that's going to be later, because that's a whole, show in and of itself. Okay, I hate white on white, cursor on background. All right, let's get to the part I know Crystal Phoenix was waiting for. What not to say? What don't you say to somebody? Oh, Rich, I 100% believe it. Stress can cause hair loss. Absolutely, 100%. And Is that then reversible? I don't know because I'm not a doctor. But getting rid of that stress certainly is going to help. Um, I did a, I did a, I think we ended up with a 3-part live on stress in the body. And I presented, even though it's long, I think it was really interesting because I had a lot of visuals along the way. And I talked about all the different body functions that get shut down when your stress hormone, that cortisol level, when that spikes. And you look at all of the different, if it's not 100% necessary for you to survive, it's going to get shut down or, at least lowered. Exactly. And then, Janet, I'm going to put you on spot. I'm going to put your comment up because I think it's important, and it's to anybody else's trauma, what I'm talking about. She's made huge strides with her CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. For those of you who aren't in the know with that, involves taking things out where you buried them, giving them air and light, metaphorically speaking. Absolutely. We're taking out that stuff that we shoved in a box, right? And we're airing it out. And that's why I say talking about it gives it life. Speaking about it makes it real. Even if we're just thinking about our feelings, you're like, well, I'm dealing with it. I'm thinking about it. I'm dealing with it. You know, but there is just something to be said for saying it out loud, even if you're writing it in a journal, people. That act of saying it, it's like, I can't take it back now. Those words actually went out of my mouth. You're giving voice to your trauma, literally giving voice to your trauma. And so if you're not ready or you're not in a place where you can speak to somebody else about it, talk to a camera like this. Go talk to the wall, but speak your truth out loud. There is such power in it. And when I said my truths, particularly my earliest memories, when I said them out loud, and even was to say, you know what, I don't remember everything, but this is what I know in my heart of heart happened. I made it real for me. It stopped that self-doubt for me. When I realized that it's possible that I remember without having a visual memory of something. I don't remember that pillow being put in front of my face, or a hand covering my face and mouth. I don't have that visual memory, but I know it happened. Ever since I was little, I have panicked when somebody puts something in front of my face. Don't try and cover my face. Don't try and cover my mouth. Don't even get in my face just this close. Don't wave your Christmas present in front of my face that close. I will start to panic. There's a reason I do that. Not just because I'm uncomfortable with something, this close to my face. Not a lot of people are. But literally, that anxiety, starting to panic. But I always wondered to myself, did it really happen? I can't remember. Meaning I don't have a visual memory of it. But my body remembers. And so having this knowledge, knowing that that can happen, and then speaking it out loud, I have stopped questioning myself as to whether this incident really happened in my brain the way I feel like it did. And that can be very, very powerful. Maka, again, I do want to get to the what not to say thing, but and Mark says, I got through most of my trauma because I disassociate maybe too well in the situation. And when I talk about it, probably kept me sane. I understand this because some people go, well, you're so brave to talk about what you've, to share your story and to be able to tell, what goes on and whatnot. Evening, Deborah. Thanks for stopping by. I'm so glad you're here. In a way, I still dissociate a little bit from that experience. I know that it happened to me. I've been dealing with the things that it's kind of put me through, but it's kind of over here now. And so it does feel easier for me to talk about, but not necessarily all aspects. And this came up actually only a few months ago, a month or two ago, where I was speaking to somebody in a private conversation and we were talking about something, and there was an aspect of what I was talking about that just hit me in the chest and just was like, okay, that's new. I haven't previously panicked over that piece before. So what that tells me is there's something there. I'm just now either remembering it, being able to put it in order, something. But there was another little piece that I had to deal with. So we can even think that we've dealt with a whole, with our trauma in regards to something, and you'll have a trigger that you don't even know why. Okay, let's just pull it. I smelled bacon. I'm just making this up. So I smelled bacon and all of a sudden, like I had this panic attack or whatever. There's something going on there. You have no idea why. And you might not be able to put two and two together initially, but something is bringing that on. And as you feel safe, as your brain feels safe enough to let yourself know what's going on with this, you will be able to then process that information and deal with it, as long as you're able to get it out somehow. And if starting to say something out loud even feels too much for you, start with the writing. That's okay. We all have to start somewhere. The key is to be able to process it without overwhelming yourself. So you have to know yourself when to back off. Don't throw yourself into a full-blown tizzy if you can avoid it. Sometimes it can't, and that I greatly understand. Oh, Crystal says because of her abuses and traumas during during COVID, she couldn't wear a mask. I get it. I get it. That was one of the reasons why I didn't go out very much, because I knew that if I went to the grocery store, I was expected to wear a mask. And putting that thing in front of my face and having to breathe through that. And you want me to calmly go around the grocery store? I'm actually seriously laughing because the thought of it is just absolutely hysterical to me. I couldn't. Never in a million years would I have been able to do that. I don't even think I still could. You know, it was all I could do. One time we had to wear it on an airplane, where the airports were still requiring it in the airport. But I would have to go like in a corner of the bathroom or whatever and just kind of pull it down for a little bit every so often, because that was just, it was easier for me because I was putting it on myself, and I could still breathe, but just, putting it down a little bit, having a break in between, there was enough for me to be able to get through that trip. It was something that we didn't think we had to wear them, and it kind of surprised us. So that's, why I'd agreed to go on the trip, and I wasn't going to ruin it for everybody, right? Okay, so we're moving on. Crystal, don't think about it. We're moving on here. Let's talk about some of the things not to say to somebody, whether they're just disclosing to you. One of them I said was about not believing somebody, judging somebody, being, well, why were you there? Why did you get yourself into that situation? What do you mean you don't remember exactly what happened? How can you not remember what's next? All of these questions, although may be coming from a genuine curiosity standpoint, for somebody who is uninformed about trauma, they could generally be going, I don't understand. What do you mean you don't remember what comes next? Just think about take your time and just think about what comes next. No, you don't understand. I do not know what comes next. But by saying that, it very much can feel like a judging situation, like you're not believing that person. Also, asking for details before somebody is ready to give them can be triggering for people. They can feel that pressure to try and give more information and remember something that they didn't. And this is where we got into trouble, guys, with people filling in blanks, especially when they were being interviewed by the police. Uninformed people, and they're trying to fill in the blanks for that person, and they do it wrong. And so the story changed because you're like, no, that's not what happened. I guess, okay, logically, let's think. What came next? What would connect A and B? What happened in between there? Now, more, I won't say all, but there are a good portion of law enforcement and medical professionals and counselors. I think of like school counselors who have training in this area, have a background. And so they understand more not to pressure so that we don't try and fill in the blanks, especially as kids will try and do that. Telling someone you'll pray for them and never doing it. Prayer is powerful. And some people don't believe it, and that's okay. I'm so sorry, Deborah. Mock. It's something I've only talked about once due to certain issues, but I had a choking issue as well. I went through that too. I get how scary that is. So I'm right in there with you, girls, right in there with you. Hearing what somebody has to say and then saying, wow, that could have been worse. Again, you may not mean it in a bad way. You may mean it in oh, I'm so glad that what you went through was not as bad as I could have imagined it or that I've heard other people. But what that does is it's comparing traumas, and it can minimize somebody's experience. Their experience is their experience. And this is trauma comparison is something that we do here. Oh, Froggies, no problem. Welcome. I'm glad that you're listening. Listen and learn. That's fine. We do it in our community as well. All survivors, we're all guilty of it at some point in time, I'm sure. Going, wow. Crystal, either one of you I'm talking to, I haven't had to go through what either one of you have gone through. Man, I was lucky. Yes, I was lucky. that I didn't have to go through something worse. However, that does not make my trauma any better or worse of an experience than theirs. Because my trauma feels to me just like their trauma feels to them. Regardless of what objectively happened, you process the trauma just the same. And believe it or not, for all of those who are out there who maybe just had kind of horrible, narcissistic, neglectful parents, and you're like, yeah, I really don't have trauma. Maybe, maybe not. Depends on the level of neglect, right? Depends on the level of emotional inattentiveness. We can use the word abuse, emotional abuse. Physical trauma and emotional trauma get processed just the same. It is the same receptor of our brain, the same processing area of our brain. Brain scans cannot tell the difference from emotional trauma and physical trauma. They look exactly the same. Medical doctor would never know by looking at one versus the other. If that doesn't tell you something, so it doesn't matter that, one person suffered from chronic neglect their entire childhood, and another person got beat up as an adult. It doesn't matter. Trauma's trauma. And we have to believe that, and we have to take that into consideration whenever you're talking to somebody, or hopefully whenever you're listening to somebody, because isn't that what we're trying to get across the most, is that listening, being there, being present for somebody is the greatest gift that you can give a survivor, that you can give somebody. They may just need for you to be. Maybe it's just being with you, knowing that you know. And for right then, that's enough. So let's have ice cream and let's just chill out together. It's enough that you know. And I know as we're sitting here eating our ice cream, if I choose to divulge more, if I choose to talk about it more, that you're there. Truly giving just of ourselves, our time, our space is invaluable to a survivor who's reaching out. So never tell someone it could be worse. Never tell someone, just get over it. That wasn't so bad. Or, you know what, that happens to everybody. My dad was like that too. Again, it goes back to this issue of trauma comparison or minimization of what somebody went through. Sorry, guys, I'm itching. I probably have hairs underneath my shirt. I'm very sensitive to things like that. Who else can feel a single hair under a shirt tickling your belly or your back and will drive you absolutely insane until you get it? Other people, they could have half their head of hair back there and they would never know. But I can feel that one little hair. I think I said, I don't think anybody else knew after Tiff that I came. People are going, yep, me. For some reason, I see this more with survivors. And the back of my mind has got to think it is the trauma to the body that just makes us more sensitive. It makes our skin more sensitive. Let's see. Oh, asking again, I said this before. Why didn't you just? or at least you survived that. Um, it happened a long time ago. Why don't you just move on? Like, we're able to just move on without dealing with it. Most of us, that's what we've been doing our entire lives. We've put it in a box thinking that we've forgotten about it. But guess what? Your body knows it's there. Your mind knows it's there. It's been leaking out in little ways. That's why we have developed our negative coping skills, because of that stuff. We don't develop negative coping skills to deal with positive things in our life. It's because of the negative stuff, right? So if you don't think that you've had something, let's just go back to the things that we consider, trauma: physical, emotional, sexual, abuse, and neglect. Neglect is that chronic, that longer term, all right, that we think of. Our traumatic events in our lives, like we're talking natural disasters, the car accident, near-death experiences, war, things of that nature. Yeah. So it could be big T trauma, what they call quote unquote big T trauma, those singular events that are like boom, or that chronic stuff: racism, bullying, these chronic things that eat away at you over time. That is a trauma as well. Hi, Cosmic. How are you doing? I'm so glad you stopped by. Mwah. All the way over in Australia. Yeah, if you've just shelled it and you've never dealt with your trauma, if something triggers you, yeah, if you get defensive or you have a real strong reaction to something, there's probably something buried in there, especially when people don't understand why they're like that. They don't understand why they're reacting so strongly. If you're able to kind of get them past the defensiveness. Hey, Indigo, how are you doing? Thanks for stopping by. We just never want to do anything that is going to invalidate somebody's experience. And again, we can come sometimes from the most well-meaning space. And it's very important that as we're speaking with somebody, that as survivors, we need, and this is why it's important that we are in touch with our experience, that we are in touch with our trauma and what happened, to be able to recognize if we do have triggers, whether that's to sounds, places, people, smells, any of our senses can be a trigger, right? So seeing people, hearing something, tasting something, smelling something, touching, a soft fabric. Anything can be a trigger. Sometimes people can inadvertently trigger us and they don't understand it. And it may have nothing to do with you personally. Maybe you're just sitting around with a bunch of people and they're talking about, they end up bringing up a subject, maybe talking about how, awful their dad was or whatever. And this is starting to trigger something with you. If it's a one-on-one type of situation, you may be able to ask them, hey, could you, that subject, it's just, it's bringing up some things and my anxiety level is increasing with that. So can we move on? Can we not talk about that? And they may talk about it again. And sometimes they don't realize that they're talking about it again. They don't realize that it's that subject or how that is the trigger for you. So it can kind of come up again. So depending on the person, they may have a learning curve, they may have an experience, but you may have to back yourself out of that conversation, or leave that grouping for that night. If you're out with a group of friends, if it's something that you can't get away from, go to the bathroom. Maybe by the time you come back, that they've changed the conversation. But knowing ourselves, very, very important in understanding why we react to certain situations the way that we do, and being able to protect ourselves. Self-care is so important. That's why I say protect your mental health. Trigger warning. If something is bothering to you, even if you don't know why, back out. You can figure it out at a later time. Don't try and stay and figure it out and get, that feeling even more, right? Definitely do it. Indigo says, I'm finding out so much about intergenerational trauma in her family. Knowing this has offered me clarity in recent years. Yeah. We've spoken about intergenerational trauma once before, but definitely a subject to revisit again and again and again. I understand some of the things that I have gotten from my parents. I don't think they know, though. Dealing with mental health, well, my parents have always been very supportive of my journey to deal with my mental health. This has not been something that they've embarked upon themselves. To my knowledge, I don't believe my brother has as well. But it's Crystal, that's great. And some people do have very specific words that are triggering. I have, whenever I'm meeting somebody new and I find out from that person that they are a trauma survivor of one form or another, whether it's PTSD from coming back from the war, whether it's trauma because they were a survivor of child sexual assault, whatever it is, I always ask that person, is there anything that you need me to be aware of, to steer away from? Are there things that we need to not do, not talk about, words not to hit on? And sometimes they have no clue. They're like, I have no idea, but I'll let you know. And that's the best they can do. And that's okay. But if you do know, then certainly we can't be afraid to stand up for ourselves, protect our mental health, and tell that other person, please don't use this word, because they won't know unless they're informed. And they may forget, purposely or unintentionally. It can be either one, and you're just going to have to, kind of weigh that for itself. But I know I did have somebody, and she had to disconnect with me because I had a habit of using this word. And when I spoke to her, I just used it. I wasn't meaning to. And yes, I know she had told me, but it's like, how you just can't always remember certain things in your brain. And for some reason, remembering that one specific, the other words I got, but that one specific word, it just escaped me. And she said, as much as this is good and as much as this has been great, and this is several years ago, I just can't. I said, I get it. I get it. It's okay. It sucks that I couldn't get there for you, but I understand. She had to protect herself first. And so wasn't cutting out a toxic person in her life. I wasn't trying to be this way to her. It's just the way I talk. It is just my speech patterns that I used. And it's so hard to get out, get out of that. Oh, dang, Mark, that's got to be hard. My aunt doesn't even realize she will do everything to trigger you when she finds out about a trigger. She was abused by being intentionally triggered by her parents and connected that with love. Eek. Yeah. And unless she does a whole lot of work, she's not going to realize that that connection is one that was unfortunately made and is not a healthy one. That's I feel for you. I feel for you. I feel for you. Cosmic, I have not slowed down since I said I owed you a longer email, and I still do, because you're somebody who, I want to speak with more in depth about your project and, have you on here if you are willing. We'll just have to find a time. Crystal, how many times alive do I end up triggering you? I'm laughing because I'm embarrassed and I'm sad, and I don't know that I will ever remember that, because I use that word a lot. That's a tough one. I can, yeah, it's the type of thing that's a word you use all the time in different contexts and in different meanings that that would be very, very difficult to have to find substitutions for it so that they were first and foremost in your brain, particularly if I'm actually speaking to you. I think we did deal with this once, and I had to have that on hand so that I was able to go to that word whenever I wanted to use the other one. And just going back to mock, I mean, this is why I say it's so important that we do deal with our traumas. We are seeing older generations slowly, that ones who have taken up the mantle. Hopefully, we in the future, as we destigmatize trauma, it makes it easier for people to talk about. And as we talk about trauma and we talk about what trauma entails, big T and little t trauma, so that people understand it's not just that they had a sexual assault. It's not just that somebody went through domestic violence. Understanding truly all the different things that are trauma. We can have conversations about it. Understanding trauma is a mental injury. Trauma can cause physical illnesses, but trauma is not a mental illness itself. So we take away that piece of it. We take away that stigma of it. And that's why I built this platform initially with sexual assault survivors in mind, because where I was coming from in my trauma, in my background, what I was dealing with most prevalently was that. However, as I've gone on this journey, as I've continued to explore different topics, researching different topics, and then truly seeing how my childhood experiences beyond any of the sexual assault, how some of my adult experiences beyond any physical, emotional, sexual trauma, I understand myself so much better. But I'm still learning and I'm still growing. And that's why this is still my journey. Healing is a journey. I don't think we're ever totally healed. We can be, I think, good with things, and to have pretty positive in our life, but you never know when something's going to pop up. And that's why healing's totally a journey, because we have new experiences all the time as well. And we might have to heal from that. So exactly, Christy. It made you realize that so many people are trauma survivors and don't even know it. How do you support someone who doesn't know but is causing damage? 100%. And talking about trauma and talking about what it is, talking about different scenarios, it gets people to look at themselves and go, oh, I never thought of myself as having trauma. I never thought about that as trauma, because either A, trauma was a bad word, or B, well, everybody else I knew has gone through it too. You know, we were all raised like that. Like that house somehow makes it okay. It doesn't. It just means you have a collective trauma. And this is where, this is where generational trauma comes in as well, because it feeds into our next one. 100%. Anybody else want to bring up some things not to say? Anything that they've heard in their life that they've just gone, yeah, this wasn't. My Stixie lip balm gone. I guess I'm gonna have to choose mango, orange mango. We can't save everybody. We can't save anybody, actually. All we can do is be there for people. All we can do is try and listen. And if some people don't want to acknowledge that trauma, I know many people in my family who are like that. It's probably something they're never going to really delve into. At least not on a scale where they would tell anybody else, or anybody else maybe besides one person. It's not so where it's going to be common family knowledge. And, that is up to them. So just a bullet point hit some of the highlights in terms of how to support a survivor. Be patient, be open, be there, be willing to talk if they want to talk. Encourage them to get professional help. Professional therapy could do wonders. However, I know not everyone can afford it. That's why connections to groups like this can be invaluable for some people. Please share this platform. Sassy would be happy to be that community. Providing practical support such as the resources that are in my chat. Rain and, oh shoot, hang on. I'm going to go into one of these so that I can actually see. Hang on, guys. I'm just going into an old live so that I can see my resource list. Here we go. There's the National Sexual Assault Hotline, available 24/7. RAIN, they have the website, and on the website they have support phone numbers There is believe it or not, there's a safe helpline that is put up by the Department of Defense. They have a 24-hour live. You can call, you can get into group discussions online, you can get into one-on-one discussions online. And I have their links up there, as well as the Victim Connect Resource Center, which basically is a warehouse for other resources. 1in6.org is for male survivors, and I'm trying to find the name for the Canada one for men. I have it in I have it in one of my lives, and I just need to find it again. And I want to get that on my resource list as well. Time heals all wounds. Yeah, not really. It just means they're still there 20 years from now. If you're actively working on healing those wounds, time can help lessen the impact of it as you're dealing with it. But just because time goes by doesn't mean that that opening is going to close, right? Are you sure it was that bad? You're too sensitive about it. Oh, there's a good one, Christy. You shouldn't be that upset. It was years ago. Yeah. These are good ones, guys. These are good ones. And, I don't know who you heard it from, but again, it's one of those things that mock exactly. You have to put up boundaries for yourself. And this is why I say you have to know yourself. And if you never speak your own truth, at least to yourself, how do you know where you should have boundaries? You don't. And until I truly feel, until you, I truly believe, that was for you, Crystal, I'm trying. I firmly believe that until you start on your healing journey, until you at least give voice to your trauma, you're not going to be able to set those boundaries firm enough that somebody who wants to intentionally isn't going to be able to push those boundaries, and then maybe push them a little bit more and push them a little bit more. Because it does take a lot to set those things in stone, right? And set them firmly enough that we feel comfortable where they are, to know where we have to have them. That's part of the healing process. It's part of the learning process about ourselves, right? Educate yourself. Being a participant in a live such as this. Reading more about trauma. Reading about how can I support a survivor. There's plenty of YouTube online, people who are talking about survivors and talking about supporting survivors and things like that. Just try and understand what is underlying all of this. I think when you have that deeper understanding, you see things in a much different light. At least I did. It put together some dots that I went, oh my gosh. I never thought about the link between trauma and autoimmune disease. I never thought about the link between trauma and ADHD. I never thought about the link between trauma and heart disease 30 years from now. When we understand all of these things, it just, it puts what we go through in such a different perspective, I think, and can do so for somebody you're supporting. If somebody you're supporting or somebody comes to you for support, if you can, and I say if you can because not everybody has the emotional bandwidth to support a survivor, depending on the level of support that they need. And that's where it becomes incumbent upon the person listening to set what their boundaries are. And that's why helping them to get resources that can help them further may be able the way that you're going to be able to help them. You may not be able to sit and listen to some of what they have to say. Maybe it's because of what they have to say is triggering to you and are really bothersome to you and you don't know why. You might need to do some digging then yourself. But check in with them occasionally. And by occasionally, I mean fairly regularly. You know, again, this is going to depend on your closeness with this person. But just, hey, how you doing? How are things going? Especially if it's a new disclosure. Encourage that person to take care of themselves. And that's in every single aspect of their life. Physically, mentally, spiritually, if they have. Encouraging self-care is really important because a lot of survivors feel so beaten down that we don't feel like we deserve the good. And so encouraging them to take care of themselves, encouraging them to do something good for themselves, something nice, something that they would like. You know, their choice may have been taken away in a number of different respects, whether that was what to eat or, you know, when to eat when they were growing up, or their choice in terms of bathing, or, I mean, you know, in anything. That just by giving that person the option, saying to the, it kind of reminds them, hey, yeah, I am worthy. I'm worthy of good things in my life. You deserve these things. And that definitely helps boost confidence. I love the countries that actually pay for care, for professional care. It's so important. You know, when I talk about being expensive, I'm coming from a U.S. standpoint where a lot of places, I think my insurance plan for mental health will pay for 6 visits a year or 12 visits a year. So once a month. Well, you know what? If I was just in the verge, if I was just disclosing, if I was just getting to some, that's not, no. I mean, they at least want to see you once a week, depending on what your thing is, twice or 3 times a week. And then if you've only got once a month paid for, it can price you right out of professional help. Mom, this is incredibly important. Absolutely. I sometimes say that I can listen to you for you to get it out but after that, you can't do more for them. And it's for me as well. When somebody is talking to me about their trauma, most of the time there is a disconnect that I can do from my feelings. And I think a large part of this has to do because of working with survivors for so long and also coming across this in my professional career in the legal system. I could not deal with these cases if I was to take on everybody's trauma, because there are some cases that are just absolutely horrific. You have to be able to have a detachment from it. It's the same way police officers and first responders. It's not to say this stuff doesn't affect us, and that's why we have to look at self-care as well as professionals. But I can do this. But I only have so much personal emotional bandwidth to deal with somebody's issues one-on-one. And that's why I say I am always up to listen to you. But I know that I can't be your weekly counselor. You can't rely on me to be able to, talk through your issues all the time. I will help you get those resources. I will help you look at where can we find you something that can support you in that way. And I check in with you and say, hey, how we doing? Things okay? Just not okay? Okay, what do you need to be put in this direction? Do we need to go in that direction? If it was somebody close to me, can I take you out for ice cream and just kind of get your mind off of it? Whatever I can do, I will do. It's interesting. I'm listening to Canadians talk as to the differences within they're in different provinces, and looking at the differences in terms of what's paid. Carmel saying it is paid for, but the wait list is really long. Absolutely. Yeah, professional mental health, it can be, people can be priced right out of it, and that's why we can have to sometimes rely on each other and different in our communities. I'm gonna take that banner off. I'm gonna put this banner up. Oh, look there, put it on right on over it. But I think I can take our trigger warning off. It's getting at 8 o'clock, and I'm gonna have to skedaddle. Thank you, Primo. And I believe each and every one of you. Like I said, I see you, I hear you, and I believe you. And that's what we're here for. And this is my email. I encourage anyone who needs to, if you don't know where to start, reach out to me. Reach out. I am happy to be a starting point for you. Everyone needs to start somewhere. And if there's a particular issue, or I'm not ready to disclose, but I needed to say something. I need to say something out loud. I'll hop on a personal stream with you. I'll hop on a video call. If it's something that you need to verbalize instead of writing, it's fine too. Janet, I'm glad you heard on her behalf. That's awesome. They're discussing different differences with insurance companies. Oh, don't even get me started that way. Don't even get me started. I'm going to throw that up on the ticker. If anybody does want to support what we do here, I am looking to continue this as much and as best as I can, and to bring you the best content. If you want to donate, certainly it will be appreciated, but don't ever feel like you can't come here, because you can't. We're a community, and I will be here as long as I possibly can. And right now I don't see an end to it. And I think that's a wonderful thing. If you have any comments about today's show, You think of something else, you think, you know what? I wish somebody had said this to me when I disclosed. Or I wish somebody hadn't said X. Throw them in the comments, guys. Even if it's something you said here, if you think about it and could throw it in the comment, that would be great, because it's the algorithm really loves those comments. If you hadn't hit that like button yet, go ahead and hit the like button. I really appreciate it. The algorithm likes that too. But more than that, it loves those comments because it loves seeing those words that we're using in our live reiterated in the comments, you know? So it's like, oh yeah, they are talking about trauma, and these people are talking about the trauma back. And therefore, this is a really good trauma thing. So we're going to push this out to more people. And that's how the YouTube algorithm works. And that helps us grow. I very specifically am not on other social media platforms at this point in time. If you want to share individual videos or share the channel in general on other platforms, you're more than welcome to. I have chosen not to do it. One, from a time standpoint, I just don't have time to update across multiple platforms, and nor do I have the ability to pay for something that does that all for me. And at least for the next 6 months, that's the time frame I've given myself. I'm enjoying the organic growth, getting to know you, getting to know all the new people who have come in, seeing you, and this helps so that I don't grow too fast. If I was presenting this simultaneously across all, across Instagram and across Facebook and, yada, 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 I am concerned about growing the membership too large at a time. I think we're pulling in people who are interested, whether they feel they have trauma or not, whether they want to just be supporters of the community or actually within, our survivor themselves. And so this is the way I've chosen to go about it. Maybe we'll go beyond YouTube one day. I'll revisit that in the second half of 2025. Still got my hands full for the beginning because I got so many things I want to do. All right, we are at 5 to 8, so we're going to wrap up here, guys. If you have any future topics that you want to talk about, please throw it in the comments. I do read each and every one of the comments. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Thank you for reminding me again, Carmel. And if you have a topic but you don't want to put it, you don't want everyone to see because you think it might be a little personal, or you're just not comfortable putting something in the topic, you don't want your name out there, whatever the case is, email me. That's fine. Email me. I'm happy to take recommendations that way as well. Additionally, if you have any comments or criticisms, things that you want to see done differently, or things that you think that can be done better, please let me know that as well. I am not above, I'm not pretending that I know all. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a licensed psychologist. I am just somebody who has seen a lot of trauma, read a lot of trauma, and been through a lot of trauma. And the host here of this wonderful SAS community. So thank you for being here, because without you guys, there is no SAS community, and I'd be talking to dead air. So love all of you. Thank you. It's an honor each and every time I come live to have you guys here. Thank you so much for being here. Please remember, you are worthy, you are valuable, and you are loved just the way you are for who you are. Surviving together, never alone. Outro to come. Hugs and love from me. Bye, guys.